Hey y'all, welcome to the Clock Tower. I'm Colton here with Brandon. We've got more Springfest to talk about and some card reveals from Avatar and Spy Family. We were in Chicago this last weekend. We'll talk about that too. But first, let's talk about the earliest tournament that we haven't talked about yet. Springfest in Mexico City. Quince, Hololive, Sword Art winning that one. Alice in the SAO seat. The first weekend that the new SAO was available, so we expect to see Alice a lot going forward. Second place was an old Zekken Link Strike with some standby, along with Pants Salvage Fate, and then Escanor in seat C. Kaguya Quince, Gurren Lagann Anti Spiral in third, Ruby, Corone Rushia, and 8 Choice Dal in fourth. Big regional in Mexico, 64 teams. Historically, Mexico has been a little bit different from the other regionals in terms of meta. And obviously, we see some of that here. Gurren Lagann, Ruby, Link Strike, all making top four. Not a ton of Alice. There's there's an Argo and a Silica both in top eight outside of top four as well. But there are definitely some outliers here in Mexico City. What do you take from seeing this, Brandon?
That we do see a Alice Silica build make top place, but then we don't really see a whole lot more of it, right? We only see Alice Argo and then Alice Silica once again, but both in the bottom half of top eight.
We are missing a team from Mexico City still, so still waiting to see what the eighth team was. But you're right. 3 of the 7 teams having Alice might actually be a little underrepresentative in terms of what I think a lot of people might think. But again, this is the first regional with it. And I think this is something that you do see in regionals that are more isolated, right? The Mexico City regional is half a continent away from the nearest other regional. It's, something like 1,000 miles from Texas. You do see stuff that's different because you're not seeing people who have been going to a lot of other regionals, right? Like the Chicago regional and the Georgia regional are going to have, some overlap in the player base. The Mexico regional has a lot less overlap than basically any other regional that takes place in the Western Hemisphere. So it's not super surprising to see some stuff that is different. But you're right, maybe there's some hesitancy to try out the new thing, but also at the same time, 4 of the 7 teams that we know of had some kind of Alice on them. So, who's to say? Moving on to Madrid, only 15 teams, so they only cut to top 4. Kaguya, Escanor, and Dual Laners taking first. Pantsbook Slime, 8 Standby Choco Hololive, and then another Escanor in second. Alice Silica, Bang Dream, Kanan Mashiro, and then Choice Pants Dal in third. Dual Laners, Tokyo Revengers, 8 Salvage Bang Dream, and the Mike Chang Special, a 37 zeros list from Sword Art, ending up in fourth. So let's talk about the obvious first. Brandon, what's the Mike Chang Special?
Well, there is a bunch of synergy with level zeros that Sword Art can take advantage of and can really just refund its hand very efficiently. So it is definitely not playing for board in any stretch of the imagination, but it's playing for resources, right? You're in the Stock Soul Mother's Rosario, so you still have a combo at the top that can pair with it. You're building stock throughout the game. You're building resources because you have cards like the Great Fortune Sugaha and the Stunned Keiko, which when you reveal zeros off the top of your deck, you can just add them to hand. So you're still kind of plussing off hand despite not comboing. So you're refunding those cards back to hand. Basically just running those many plussing cards at zero as possible. You have a bunch of Soul Pump as well, so you're not falling behind in the damage race.
Yeah, this deck is literally just trying to win the damage race, but it's doing so in a way that doesn't immediately destroy its own hand all the time, because it has those zeros that when they get reversed, if they reveal a zero off the top, you can add it to your hand. So it's constantly being refunded. You have ways to recur those cards on board. It has a plan, and apparently when it executes it, it can do quite well for itself, and it finishes fourth in Madrid. Also want to point out the 8 Standby Hololive list. We don't see a lot of 8 Standby Hololive, but we see it here. It runs the 2/2 Choco, when it's brought on by the standby, you can stand it, and you can then sack it as a field counter for 3,500 power. So it's an interesting combo. It's obviously this is really leaning into the 8 standby of it all. It's running 4 of the 1/1 IMA, the traditional 7/5 with Encore profile. It doesn't have a ton of finishing power, but it does have the defensive tools like the IMA, which can really break a board. It has the Suisse stock healer, and it runs a copy of the Matsuri stock swap. So it's got, some of just the good stuff that Hololive tends to have. But yeah, interesting list for sure. It runs 4 of the Luna that Honorverse pings 1, and a couple of the Moris that have cancel burn. So no true top end in this. It's playing very much a board heavy game, but if it gets its standby targets out, it can win board at all levels. So interesting list. I've never seen this before, so wanted to point it out. It finished second in Madrid. Other than that, pretty normal stuff here. 2 TRVs going top 4, but everything else here I think is pretty standard stuff. Nothing you're super surprised to see do well. Kaguya did lean into the choice top end instead of the other more salvage focused stuff, but that Chica top end is just generically solid because it's just ditch 1, deal 2 or 3, so it's relatively low cost. But that was in seat A for the winning team alongside an Escanor and a dual laners. So,
well, and to be fair, that was also in seat C in Chicago.
Yes, it was. So moving on to Chicago, this is where we were at this last weekend. Slime, 8 standby Dal, that's a throwback, and salvage choice Kaguya taking the win. Kanata Marine, Escanor, and Alice Silica in second. Danmachi, Kanata Marine, and Alice Silica in third. Tokyo Avengers, 8 bar Sword Art, and 8 standby Quince in fourth. So first thing I want to notice here is that Silica was the top end of choice, not the Argo, in Chicago. Out of the 6 Alice decks that finished top 8, all of them played the Silica top end instead of the Argo. The Argo is a lot more damage intensive. It's trying to pop off and, just murder an opponent with repeatable damage. The Silica is a lot more precise, and it has that top check X that allows you to get into your Gram event and your salvage climax, so that you can actually get your damage off as well.
Yeah, and then the 7th one being the bar list with the Nexol.
Interesting choices, I think. I would have expected Argo, frankly. I've been a lot more enthused about the Argo as a top end for Alice than Silica. Silica does have, a couple of weaknesses, but it's clearly quite good because it showed up 6 times in top 8 in Chicago.
Yeah, notably the only team that was in top 8 that didn't have Alice was the winner. But a lot of Alice in seat C and seat A for sure. We were also in Chicago as well. Looking at our run, we ended up 4-3 as a team, mostly thanks to Colton and Brandon. I ended up being 2-5 on the day. Just awful day. I ran Slime. Colton, you brought Dragon Maid, and Brayden brought 8 Choice Hololive.
Yeah, Brayden was on the 8 Choice Hololive, Watame into the Coco top end. This is a top end that Brayden has been having a ton of fun with ever since Hololive came out. It's surprisingly powerful, definitely has a pretty high whiff chance, but it's more powerful than I think a lot of people give it credit for. It's essentially pay 1, pitch 1, Icy Tail 3, repeatable over and over again, but you max out at 1 point of damage per successful Icy Tail, so you can't hit 2 or 3 off of 1. It has the potential to, if you build up enough power through the choice trigger, particularly build up enough stock in hand, you could pop off 5 or 6 of those, and you're it feels like you're playing Escanor. You're going 3-3-3, 1-1-1-1-1-1 or something like that to close a game. It's very powerful when it hits. So that's what Braden was on. He finished 4-3. I also finished 4-3. I was playing my 8-bar Dragon Maid, and honestly, I'm very happy with how I played and with how the deck functioned. There was one game in round 2 where I opened 4 climaxes and then drew 5 more. I didn't even hit bar. I just drew 9 climaxes, I think, over the course of the game. And when you do that, you just lose. So there's nothing you can really do about that. That's just an 8 out of 50 problem that any deck will deal with. I went 1-1 against Alice, which I felt pretty good about. I think Dragon Maid has a really good path against Alice. If Dragon Maid gets to 1 first and then gets its combo, it can play those level 2 killers that can't be backed up, can immediately, force the Alice player to have to spend the resources they just picked up off the combo to run the combo back. And if they do, you have the Kanan that can easily, save one of those level 2 killers, can also play the 2-1 that sends things to memory. Dragon Maid does not have an offensive power problem, and as long as you get a level 1 combo turn before Alice comes down, you're in a really, really good spot. My second game against Alice, which was in round 7, I canceled like 4 times at 0, so I wasn't able to get to 1 first, so I wasn't able to fully deal with the Alice board as much as I wanted. The other game I lost was to Sora Marine. I played really well in that game. I stuck 5 off the Ilalu. Sora refreshed 4 out of 28. And I stuck 5 with the Ilalu, and I needed 2 for the win. I swung for 2, and it canceled on 2. I think he was 3 out of 20 at that point, and he canceled on 2. So I was very happy with how I played, very happy with the deck. A little bit of RNG, and we're talking about, going 5-2 and maybe being a little bit more excited. But overall, I'm very happy with it. I'll be taking it to New Jersey. I'll be playing it at Rumble. I think it's a good list. And as evidenced by, I think it was Dean who played it, he went 6-1, and his team finished top 8 with an 8-bar list. That's, pretty similar to mine in a lot of ways. It runs a lot of the same tech. And that's the other thing, is Dragon Maid also has really nice tech. It's got a blinker that can cut Sora down to size and take the Neg Soul off. It's got a free side attacker that can get around Neg Soul, and it's got a stock swap. It's got all this stuff. Top checks, 1-1s that can deal with the Quince 1-1. There's so much good tech in Dragon Maid. I saw it on a lot of D tiers coming into Springfest. I don't want to see it on any D tiers for the rest of the season, because this deck is good. And I think it has the results now to vouch for that. More than a lot of the other stuff that people said was better. Looking at you, AOT.
Yikes.
People would say that AOT was good, and then in the next breath say Dragon Maid was bad. And I just don't understand that. That never made sense to me. But in any case, Dragon Maid's good. You should play it. And if you don't play it, you should ignore it at your own peril, especially if you're in Alice.
So coming up, this upcoming weekend is Rumble. By the time this video comes out, registration is probably closed, but we're going to be participating in that.
And if you are already signed up, we will see you there, because we'll be playing in both AO and NA.
And additionally, you said you were going to be there in Jersey. So if you're in Jersey, say hi.
Yep, I will be. Brandon will not. So we were there last year, had a good time, and looking forward to hanging out with the Pittsburgh guys again as well. So it's going to be a good time. The New Jersey trip is always a fun time.
Looking forward, we got the rest of the year coming up, and with that, we had some reveals coming out. I think we briefly wanted to touch on some of those reveals before we wrapped up today.
We haven't really talked about any of the Avatar reveals. I think the big early reveal was the standby package. The Zuko and Aang Dancing Dragon, when you bring out the 3-2 off of standby, you can stand it and then choose another copy of the level 3 and put it on stage. And at the beginning of your attack phase, if it's on board, you can level something down. So this absolutely breaks Alice boards, standby boards, any Neg Soul that doesn't have hexproof. So really good stuff there. And then there's also another standby combo that when you drop it, if you have this and another certain hero card, it gains 1 soul and on cancel restand. So there's some stuff here. There's definitely some stuff. The other Iroh, when it comes down, gives both of those standby combo level 3s on attack, top check, essentially choose your trigger. You can mill the rest, and also a bunch of power. It's an interesting package. I don't know how powerful it will be long term, but that is definitely a package that I think you can build a real deck around that's actually going to, have some relevance. At the very least, it will break boards, which is always relevant at this point.
That standby combo, the siblings Agni Kai, that climax itself actually combos with a separate card as well, the Azula. And it actually kind of has its own little combo as well, in addition, like separate from that, which is really interesting as well, that it can pay one, sack a character from stage to, when it becomes reversed, to deal 3. What's notable about that kind of combo is that there's a Sokka level 0 that can, when sent to waiting room, spawn out a cost 0 character to stage. So you can potentially kind of like swing multiple times with that Sokka and that kind of combination with the Azula as well.
Yeah, it takes a lot of cards. There's got to be a lot of stuff kind of in place for this whole effect to pop off, but it's definitely something that can happen. So we'll see what happens. And also, there's been a lot of concern that level 0 has not been rendered properly and that it's supposed to summon a cost 0 to stage rested, not standing. If it does summon standing, then you could just sack this with a non-attack effect or stand by over it. And when it goes away, you can summon another thing to the board to replace the thing that you brought out with the standby trigger as a standing character that can swing. So we'll see if that gets errata'd when the set actually comes out, but if it doesn't, there's definitely some fun stuff you can do with that. So I don't know how powerful this is going to be. It looks very complex, and combos that tend to require a lot of specific cards don't tend to fare as well in competitive play, but it definitely looks like there's something here, and definitely something that's going to be at least worth thinking about going into fall. On the Spy Family side of things, we got our first reveals. We're not going to go over them in detail because that's been done already by a lot of people. There is a level 3 Anya combo that exchanges itself with another Anya. It is a pay 1, pitch 1 Mocha, and it also changes into a different Anya for defensive purposes, and flips back over into the original. So if you can get 2 turns of this, 3-card Mocha is pretty good. There's also a level 0 Yor on reverse, ditch salvage, which is really nice. There's a level 1 Anya combo on reverse from the trial deck. A lot of decent stuff in the trial deck. There are 2 trial deck combos, including a level 3 on bar. On attack, pay 1, pitch 1, burn 3. So there's some decent stuff. The trial deck looks like it actually has some cards that are going to be useful. So if you are going to play Spy Family, you should probably get a trial deck playset based on what we're seeing here. But not a ton of card reveals yet. We know that there will be 4 colors in both of these sets. We do know that for sure. We've seen card art in all 4 colors for both. So be ready to choose which color you don't want to play in your deck, essentially.
Worth noting, Spy Family doesn't have a release date for English as of yet. We're expecting that to be either really late fall or in the early spring.
Yep. These are JP reveals, so we're still going to usually wait the customary 6 months or so after the set drops in JP. I think that's it for us. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back on Thursday, 5 cards, 5 minutes for Grisaya. Brandon will have a Grisaya deck tech next week. We'll have gameplay for that the following Thursday, and in 2 weeks, another Clock Talk. We're talking about Rumble. In the meantime, thank you for joining us. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and have a good one.
We'll see you then.